everybody. Hope I got everything set and ready to go. And we're going to do some drawing tonight. I'm going to show you some basic techniques of drawing. Tonight we're going to get into some detail and some shading. Several weeks ago I showed you some basic shape techniques of how to lay out a drawing, or how to start the framework for a drawing that you might be working on. And it's important to find the basic shapes. Remember, we talked about looking for circles and squares and triangles and putting those all together and creating a framework or a foundation to build from. And I'll show you what we did last time, just for a refresher real quick. So if you remember, we did basic shapes of a cat face there. So you see some triangles in the ears and the nose. You see circles for the eyes, and of course a big circle or oval for the head shape. And what we're going to do tonight is we're going to add detail and shading to this. And so you'll see what a finished drawing will look like based on that basic shape framework. And then this, same thing. If you remember, we started the idea of a little puppy looking up at you. So you see triangles and circles and pear shapes and very simple line art shapes to start your foundation or your framework for starting a drawing. You don't want to start off with details, start filling in all the details before you have the whole form or the whole framework of your image down on paper. You want to, because if you start with details, then you're going to get, everything will get distorted and out of position and all that kind of stuff. So this is the picture of the cat that we're going to be working on tonight. This is the picture of the puppy dog that we're going to be working on tonight. I see we have a few viewers here already. Thank you for tuning in. And if you'd like to give and donate towards the Corner Stage Arts and Education Center, you can click on that link below, the PayPal link below, and you can give online any amount that you would like. If you're leery about giving online, hi Peggy, you can write a check to Biographics and send it to Biographics. Right now everything's going through the Biographics account. Pretty soon I will have my own, or the Corner Stage Arts and Education Center will have its own 501c3 designation, and then we can take checks and donations directly there. But for right now, everything's running through Biographics. So if you'd like to write a check, make it out to Biographics, and maybe later on you can go to my Biographics page and see the address there. You can send it to. Or if you'd like to stop into my Biographics studio and drop off a donation, you can do that as well. So appreciate all the donations that have come in. I have people stop in once or twice a week and give me donations towards the Arts and Education Center. And it's really awesome to see the community helping and supporting what we're trying to do here. So, okay, back to basic drawing techniques with Steve. And so the cat and the dog, or the kitty and the puppy, I'm going to set these over here right now. And I'm going to talk about the tools that you can use to draw with. You don't have to have anything expensive or special or anything, like just a basic number 2 pencil will work just fine, and a plain old piece of paper will work just fine. Once you get more adept at drawing, then you can experiment with different types of pencils, colored pencils, pastel pencils, all those sorts of things. You can experiment with different kinds of paper, different textures of paper. Remember, I talked about the tooth, or the smoothness or roughness of paper is called the tooth of the paper. And the paper I'm using tonight is relatively smooth. Hi Jan, thanks for tuning in. You got to learn to do some more drawing tonight, hopefully, huh? So I'm going to show you guys, I'm going to turn the camera down to my drawing table here, and I'm going to show you my drawing pencils again, and I'm going to show you what each pencil does on the paper, so you can kind of get an idea of why it's important to have different pencils available or different drawing utensils available for different styles or different details that you may want to do. So let's do that, because I want to get at least one of these drawings done tonight, whether the cat or the puppy, I don't know. Leave me a comment below whether you want me to finish the cat first or the dog first tonight. I'd like to be able to do both, but I don't know. I tend to, once I start getting into the details and the shading, I really get focused on what I'm drawing, and I can put hours into stuff. So I have to kind of force myself to work a little faster than I normally work. So I'm going to turn my camera down here, and I'm not sure. Oh, one more click. There we go. Okay. Let's see how this works. There we go. All right. So pencils here. You can see. I actually remembered to sharpen my pencils before the show tonight, so but you can see here, right here is a 2B pencil. So we go over this way, one way or the other there, and that's a 2B pencil. And then pencils on this side over here are softer than a 2B, so you can get darker lines and fill in larger areas a lot quicker. So 2B is like a school pencil, you know, that yellow pencil you would use at school. These are softer leads over here, or softer graphite. It's not really lead. And then up here, these are harder leads. So you got 2B, and then B, and then HB, and then H, and then 2H, and 4H, and 3H, and I think it goes up to 5H here. Yeah. Okay, so these are primarily what I'm going to be using tonight. I may get into these pencils here. These are actually charcoal pencils. Okay, there's a medium hardness, a soft, and then a hard charcoal pencil there. And I'm going to show you on paper what these do whenever you use them on paper, just so you get an idea. Then I also have these charcoal sticks. These are actually sticks that are charcoal. And they're very dirty. It makes your hands dirty, and I'll probably smudge up my paper quite a bit. So that's what we're going to work through tonight. I'm also going to show you some shading techniques using a paper stub like that. I'm going to show you again the kneaded eraser and the regular hard eraser like that. We use those to do different techniques as well. So let's move this over. Get a piece of paper underneath my camera here, make sure that's lined up. That should be centered right there. I'm looking at my computer screen. Yep, I'm looking at my computer screen to my left to make sure that everything is lined up, so you'll be able to see what's going on. So here's a 2B pencil, okay, and when I draw, I usually don't hold my pencil down close to the point like this. If I'm writing, I do, because I want to have real good control and things. But when I'm drawing, I usually hold my pencil way back here. And it gives me a lot freer movement. My hand doesn't cramp up as much because I'm not holding down here so tight. I hold it kind of loose back here at the end of the pencil. And that way I can rest my hand off the side of the paper too. And I can still reach the center of the paper without smudging the graphite on the side of my hand. So that's a little tip there that you can use whenever you're drawing. If you find yourself getting too tensed up and your fingers are hurting or cramped up down here, try holding your pencil way in the back like this, and you can just do light sketches. So this is a 2B pencil, and I'm just barely touching the paper. And this also, holding it this way, also helps control with pressure when you're drawing. So you can't put too much pressure on it whenever you're holding way back here. You want just real light pressure, And if you need a darker line, it's really hard to push to get a darker line. That way, you're not going to dig into the paper or create, there's little dents in the paper. Sometimes you'll see drawings where, people are pushing so hard trying to get a dark fill in there that they actually distort the surface of the paper and it gets real shiny looking. If you hold it back here, you can't put too much pressure on it. And that way you control your line thickness and your line darkness by using the hardness of the graphite. So if I want a darker line than that, see, that's just a natural color. Like I'm using the same pressure each time, and that line always comes out that shade of gray. You notice that? So if I get a really soft pencil, like again, this is a 2B, it's kind of a medium in hardness. If I go to a 6B, it's really soft. It's still graphite, but it's a lot softer. And watch what happens whenever I hold the pencil the exact same way, use the exact same pressure. You get a little bit, I don't know if you can see that there, you get a little bit darker, a little bit thicker line. I don't know if you can tell on camera there. So if I want to fill in a wider area, I would use a soft lead and just use a real light touch, and I could get a nice solid fill without putting too much pressure down on. And then you don't wear the lead out or the graphite out so quickly. You don't distort the paper. So try that whenever you're drawing. Try to hold your pencil way in the back like that. If I need to make a really thin, fine line and I don't want too much graphite down on the paper, I would use a very hard graphite, this is a 5H. So I'll just do the same thing. I'll just do some up here. I'm just using the same amount of pressure. You can probably barely see it on the camera. So I'm holding it back here, and I'm just putting the same pressure that I used on the other pencils. But in order for me to get that any darker, I'm going to have to push really hard. But this is good. The harder the graphite, the easier it is to get real fine detail. Like if you want the whiskers on the cat, or if you want, grass, just little wisps of grass or something like that in the forefront. You could use a hard graphite pencil like this. Okay. So I know there isn't a whole lot of difference between that graphite there, but when you get into real fine detail or fine art in pencil drawing, those kind of things are really important. Now I'm going to show you what let's see here if I can make it work. I'm going to show you what a soft charcoal pencil will do. That charcoal is so soft, when I was trying to sharpen it, you can see how it just keeps breaking off. So I'll just do a real quick demonstration of what that does. If I can get it to right, there you go. So you can see how dark that is. Again, I'm just using real light touch and holding it at the back of the pencil. Okay, and you get real dark black. This is a medium charcoal pencil. Same thing. Not much difference. But if I need to get real fine detail but black, then I could use maybe something like that. And then there's a hard charcoal. It looks almost about as dark as a regular graphite pencil. So that's a hard charcoal pencil. Now, let's look at these skin tone pastel pencils. So this is like a brownish color, kind of a light brown, nut brown. This is, see, a little bit darker brown here. Make sure I'm still in frame. And this one is the darkest brown. See, that one's almost black, but that's a dark brown. So if you wanted to put some flesh tones in your drawing, if you're drawing a person, or maybe since that cat and that dog both have some some tan or beige colors in them. You know, maybe you'd want to use something like that. Now these are really fun. These are charcoal sticks, and if I roll it there, you can kind of see they're not straight. They're actually little sticks. Okay, and they're really fragile. They'll break easy, but they'll get you a really dark line there, and they wear down really quick, so you'll get a real thick wide line if you're not careful, and you can fill in big areas real easy. And they come in different thicknesses, and there's probably different hardnesses of these too. So I don't use these very often, but just because they're very dirty, and my artwork gets really messed up if I use it. So that's a real quick demonstration of different hardnesses of graphite, pencils, charcoal, pastels, and all that sort of thing. All right, so let's move this over. Let's find my... Did anybody say what they want to draw first? You want to do the cat or the dog up here? To be or not to be, Peggy says. That is the question. I'm going to work on the cat first. So that's the cat. That's the image I'm looking at for reference. All right. And this actually looks like my cat. My cat at home. His name is Tag, T-A-G, Tag. And this looks exactly like my cat Tag at home. So I'm going to draw my cat Tag. Okay, this isn't him. This is just a picture I found off the internet, but it looked just like him. The eye color, the color of his fur, and everything. And so last time we talked about basic shapes, triangles, circles, ovals, all that kind of thing. And I just built a real quick basic framework for this cat face. And I'm going to set the cat photograph there, and I'm going to work on this way. I know it'll be upside down to you, but that's the way I'm going to work on it. And I'm going to start with my 2B pencil. 2B pencil. Let me see where. Wait for my Facebook to catch up to me. Okay. So, what I normally start with whenever I'm doing a drawing, once I have my framework down, the basic shapes, then I look for the darkest shading on the image that I'm looking at. So I'm looking for the darkest areas. Obviously the pupils are the darkest areas. This edge right around his eye is real dark, almost black. In the fur, you have this shape here. It's almost like a W or an M shape. That's pretty dark. This line and this line are dark. Right alongside his nose is dark. Around the whiskers, some dark. There's a couple stripes here that are dark. So those are the darkest areas are where I'm going to start. The reason I do that is if I start with the lighter areas, if I get those light areas too dark to start with, I can't make them lighter. So I'd rather start in the darkest areas and then work my way back into the light areas. So the light areas will be one of the last things that I'll fill in. And the light areas will be determined by how dark the dark areas are, if that makes any sense. Okay, so since I have the framework of the cat face, just a general idea of where everything's going to be, I'm going to start putting in some details around the eyes. I need to get this closer so I'm not turning so far looking. Okay. And I'm going to try not to talk so much. And I need to put my glasses on so I can see. All right, so again, this is a 2B pencil, just real basic. Anybody can use a 2B pencil. You don't have to have anything special. So right around the top of his eye, and then that line kind of goes off the side of his eyeball there. And this one kind of goes right there. And I'm trying to match that same curve on this side, so it's kind of symmetrical. And And again, it doesn't have to be perfect yet because I'm still going to be going back in and adding more detail. Okay, so that's what we would call maybe not quite his eyebrows, but just that upper shape of the upper eyelid. Okay, now I'm going to draw in the dark rim around the edge of the eye. Okay, and it's not perfect circles, they're more like ovals. So I want to keep that in mind while I'm filling this in. Oh, this is something else I was going to mention too. See how the lead, I just keep calling it lead. See how the graphite on these pencils, on that side it looks really nice. On this side, the wood is way up there by the point. The reason that is because I sharpened this with a regular crank pencil sharpener like we used to have back in schoolrooms. And sometimes they're off-centered a little bit. And then you get that wood. One side of it's all wood, and then the other side's graphite. So I usually try to pick that back so I'm not, because when I'm drawing, I'm constantly turning the pencil in my hand to keep an even point the whole way around so I don't have a flat spot until I want a flat spot. I'll show you how to do that later. Okay, so I'm constantly turning the pencil, and so if one side has wood all the way up to the point and the other side doesn't, it's just annoying. So I try to fix that before I start drawing. So all right, so I'm looking at the tops of the eyes, and they're both kind of curved about the same now. The bottom around the eye kind of goes not quite a complete round circle, but it's definitely symmetrical around where the pupil is. The pupil's going to be in the middle. And then this kind of comes up here and goes like this. And you can see it starting to curve back in underneath that eyelid again. Kind of that way. Okay, now the pupil. If you look at the pupil, and I want to remind you to draw what you see, not what you think you see. Okay, the pupil is not round. It's almost football shaped. Almost comes down to a point on the top and the bottom. Okay, so it's an oval, but it's almost football shaped is what I would call it. And it's pretty much, you know, the way the cat's looking straight at the camera, it's right in the middle of the circle of the eye, both of them. So that's what we're going to do here. So right about there's this middle, right? And then I'm going to create a little football shape using that dot as reference for the center of that oval. So kind of like that. Okay, and I'm going to go back and look at my picture again. I see I need to make them a little bit wider compared to the actual photograph, so I can do that easily. It's always easier to make things bigger than to try to make things smaller. And then you always want to have the little highlight area where the light is reflecting. There's actually two little white spots on these eyes. And this one, I'm just going to go ahead and do one there and one there. And this needs to be a little wider. I said I wasn't going to talk so much. I'm just going to draw. Now I'm going to work on these dark areas, these stripes. See how this stripe comes off the side of the eye there, same thing there, down the side of the nose. So that's what I'm going to work on now. can always make these stripes darker later. Right now this is just for reference sake, just to get the stripes positioned correctly. So what I was looking at while I was drawing, I started right down the center. There's a center line down the middle of the face, and I just kind of worked off of each side and this stripe up here, and then I was paying attention to where it comes down here and ends. It's not pointing directly at the pupil. It's kind of off to the side of the eye. Same way with this one. It's not directly above the pupil. It's kind of off to the side. So that's where I tried to point these whenever I was working on the position of that stripe. And I know it looks really fundamental now, but eventually we'll be putting more detail and it'll all make sense. Now there's this little dark spot above his eye. I'm just going to place that in there, kind of like that. He has another one over on this side. Now off the end of his eye, it kind of goes there, and then it drops down and goes off the side of his face. Alongside the nose, right here. See how white this is here? We don't want to touch in there on here at all because that's going to be really light. So we want to just come down here. And you want to keep in mind the contour of whatever it is you're drawing. You're not trying to recreate something that's flat. You have to keep in mind that for example, the nose of that cat is higher here than it is here. This goes kind of dips in. So that's why I have the lines going that direction, to just kind of indicate that the sides of the nose curve down towards the face. Then there's some dots along the whiskers here, and I'm just going to get some rough ideas there where those go. There's like three rows, and then there's a little bit of a row there. This one, there's a couple there. This is kind of dark. There's some dots there, some dots there, some dots there. Center of the nose there's kind of dark. Now the nose itself is pretty light, so we don't want to put too much graphite in here, otherwise we'll have to erase it out to lighten it up. So, but we just want to emphasize the shape of the nostrils. So it's just kind of, there's one there, and it kind of curves this way, and then this one, same thing, kind of curves that way. Okay. Now in the picture, in the photograph, there's no line right there, but I have a line here because this little triangle shape of the nose was just a guideline for where to put the nostrils. So I can go ahead and erase that out of there right now. Okay. Now, where's some other dark spots here? We have this kind of goes there. We got some stripes going here. We have anybody else watching? Oh, we got lots of people here. Can't wait to see the finish. How about it, Billy? I can't wait to see the finish either. I have no idea how this is going to turn out. It might be really terrible. I don't know. We don't know till we try. Now this little stripe here kind of goes, and these kind of go this way. Again, I feel like I'm talking too much. I've just noticed now that where I have this filled in, I am way, well, it's pretty close to where I need to be, because it kind of lines up with where his mouth is if I follow those lines. that's kind of where I'm going to end up here. So that's not too bad. It's not as far out as I thought it was. Okay. Same thing on this side. Kind of starts at a point and it gets wider as it goes up. And it kind of finishes into that. And it actually connects up into there. There's a little stripe jig-jaggy there. There's one there. So this cat is actually very symmetrical in his markings. Some cats aren't. Some are just patches all over the place. This particular cat is a little easier to draw because everything's symmetrical. So whatever I do on one side, I could do on the other side. Now I'm going to go ahead and erase this scribble chin mark here because that's going to be in my way. It's going to be too dark and be hard to cover up because you see his chin is pretty light. The only dark spot is where the edge of the mouth is, and it's very short little strokes for the fur there, and it doesn't go. And when you draw a cartoon cat, people tend to continue these way up here and really emphasize where the whiskers are and stuff, but in reality there isn't a whole lot of detail down there. Depends on the color of the cat too. So this is going to represent where his chin is. And when you're doing a drawing, it doesn't have to be exact like the photograph. I mean, there's a place for photography and then there's a place for artwork. If you're trying to make your artwork look like a photograph, then yeah, you want to have every detail exact and every whisker and every piece of fur and exact location, but I'm just suggesting fur. I'm not drawing every hair and everything. I'm just suggesting where it is. It's just basically scribbles. This kind of comes down here, and it gets a lot looser the farther away you get from the focal point, because you're just given the idea that there is fur down here, but you don't have to draw every little bit of it. Okay, a little bit here, just kind of finish off where his head and his neck connect there. Same thing over here. This kind of comes around this way, and this kind of, that's really going to be about all we need there for all that. Okay. So let's take a quick reference look again. So whenever I'm drawing, I'm constantly referring back and forth from the drawing to the photo to whatever it is that I'm drawing, just to make sure that I'm not getting too far out of whack. Because again, I want to draw what I see, not what I think I see. I'm not going to be able to remember where all the positions are on all these details. I have to constantly be looking back and forth. So at the bottom of the ear, you see there's not a whole lot of detail there. So we don't want to put a lot of detail in there. We know there's fur in there, but you can't really see it. You can't really notice it. So you want to just suggest it. The top of the ear here gets kind of dark. Like this. Here's some fur sticking up there. If you're going to get into doing realistic drawings, you really need to study anatomy, study how the bone structure of a particular animal would be, whether you're drawing cats, dogs, horses, whatever. It's good to know what the bone structure is underneath all this, and the muscle structure, how the muscles all connect. so that whenever you're drawing details, you know how the contour of the surface should be, and you can kind of use that as your guide as well, especially if you're looking at a flat drawing that doesn't have enough detail in. You want to kind of know where things are supposed to go anyway. All right. Now, I don't like how light the ears are in here because I know there's fur in there, but the fur is white. Now this gets a little bit pink out here, you know, at the edge of the ears, but I don't want to make them too dark. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go just shade this kind of solid in here because there's not much fur there. It's just kind of skin. And then I'm going to work my way back this way in the direction that those long white hairs are in the ear. And it'll just suggest that there's long hairs in the ear. And then I'll go this way with this. Just make some scribbles. And that's basically all I do for fur. I just make scribbles. If you look at it real close, it's just a bunch of scribbles. Happy little scribbles. Same way over here. I want to find a flat spot on my graphite point there. Everything, because I keep turning my pencil, I have a nice sharp point on there. But if I lay the pencil down, you know, closer to the paper, I can get more of a flat edge. And I want to keep the same contour as on the other side of the ear, of this ear. So I have the hairs going this way. This one I want the hairs going this way. And because I'm right-handed, I need to turn my paper to make it easier to do that. You can turn your paper any direction you want whenever you're drawing. You don't have to twist your body like a pretzel to reach where you need to reach. But you got to keep in mind what direction you're going with the hairs. Kind of like that. And these ones will go this way. To me, this ear looks much wider than this ear, so I can either erase some of this and narrow it down, or I could try to widen this ear out, which I think that'll be easier to do, and then it would look more in proportion. So I'm actually going to bring this down this way. You're all excited about doing the eyes. The eyes are the most important part of drawing any kind of animal or person or whatever. But I want to get the all the basics down here first before I get into doing that. So where this area is here, you can see it's quite a bit lighter than where these stripes are. So I don't want to fill in the space too solid, and I want to make a nice jaggedy line or jaggedy shape where that stripe is. And then I just want to kind of real lightly just kind of make like a crosshatch pattern, but follow the shape of how the hairs, how the fur would be wrapped around the curve of the head. So those hairs aren't going all in the same direction. They start here going up and down, and then as they come around, they curve to match up with where these stripes are here. Same way with under the eye here. They're very short little hairs in there, and so I'm just just shading it in very lightly, just to kind of give you the idea that it's not one of those hairless cats. He does have fur in there. But I'm using the texture of the paper to simulate what fur, real short fur, would look like. Just little specks of graphite. And your eye and your brain will interpret that as fur. Okay, and then down here, there's a little bit of a dark spot. And then up here, we're just kind of filling this in. Very short little strokes because it's short little fur in there. Remember that white, real light spot that was right there at the corner of the eye? We don't want to fill that in. And then it kind of follows the contour up the center of the face. Okay, and same way on this side, it kind of follows the contour. Even though you're making short little lines, all those short little lines together will give the illusion of fur. Notice where I'm holding my pencil, way back in the back, on the end. This, I notice, it's still very dark up here. We want to have some detail showing. And we want to be able to differentiate between the light and the dark, especially in this shape on his forehead, because it's very distinctive of this cat. So if I was drawing a pet portrait for somebody, that would be very important, because that's how they would recognize their cat, right? So, but if you're just drawing just a random cat, you can make the markings however you want. Notice how I'm making these little scribbly lines, and I'm following the contour. Make sure I'm in there. Yeah, following the contour of the shape of the head. Now, as I'm filling this in, you kind of lose the distinction between where the stripes were that I had in there and where the fur is. So I can go back in and I can make these darker. Just hit them again, because I know right where they're supposed to be, and I'm just very loosely scribbling in like that. And then one of these here. Got one here like this. This has some detail there. This needs to be darker here now. Okay. There's some darkness here. I can just kind of darken this in. How's everybody doing tonight? That is nice music, Jan. Very relaxing, isn't it? Peggy said to auction the art and she'll bid. No, I'm not gonna. This is just pencil drawings. It's not worth anything, because I'm not really putting the time into it that I normally would, to be honest with you. I'm actually, believe it or not, moving pretty fast for how I normally work, because I want to get the majority of it done, at least. And maybe work on that puppy dog a little bit. You recognize that music, Jan? So right in here is going to be light color. Actually comes down onto his nose a little more. Kind of like that. Okay, now I'm looking for a flat spot on my graphite, because I'm going to go back in and kind of smooth that edge out there a little bit. Now down here, I'll turn it this way. Is it relaxing to watch somebody draw? I know usually when I'm drawing, or when I used to draw in school all the time, I always found it fascinating that people would actually gather around and watch over my shoulder while I was drawing stuff, and just kind of got a kick out of that. Whenever I watch somebody draw, I'm always looking for techniques that I can learn to do my drawings better. But if you've never drawn before, or if you don't think that you can draw, I don't know what is so fascinating about watching somebody draw. Because I watch somebody draw so I can figure out how they do it. But maybe you're not interested in drawing, you just like to watch it for the entertainment value. I don't know. I know sometimes when I have my pencil on the paper, it doesn't look like I'm doing much, because I'm kind of thinking as I'm putting graphite down on the paper. Sometimes I actually wiggle the pencil before I touch the paper with it, just to get the direction right, the angle. Like if I need to go a little bit this way or a little more this way, I'll wiggle it before I get to the paper, so I don't put a mark on the paper where I don't want it yet. I've noticed that's something I do pretty regularly. Now in the nose here, it's kind of pink, but it is lighter than this area up here, so I want to put a little distinction in there. Not too dark, just a little bit of texture, but I don't want it to make it look like fur there. And then it gets pretty dark right here. It kind of fades up like that. I don't want to put something in there that's not there. Again, I want to draw what I see, not what I think I see. And in the photograph, there's no line there, so I'm just going to let it float like that. And then I'm going to darken these up a little more, connect those little dots together. The original dots I put in there were just reference of how far apart each of these rows of whiskers are going to be. And then I just go back in and connect them kind of just in a little scribble pattern. So he's coming along pretty good here. What could we name this cat? Like, remember how Bob Ross, when he would do his paintings, he would always talk about the trees and the happy little rock and the stream, and thinking about a squirrel, running through the forest or whatever. Sometimes when I'm drawing something like this, I might think about what this cat's name is, or whenever it was a kitten, when it first came home to the family that adopted it or whatever, how the kids were so excited to get a new little kitten in the house. But now he's all full grown and looks very majestic and wise. So here's the fun part. We're gonna work on the eyes. So I'm gonna show you what the eyes look like. Okay, it's got a couple bright white highlight areas to give life and to show that the surface of the eye is wet. Okay, so it reflects light. Now see how the color part of the eye is about the same shade as the fur, right? It's not any darker or lighter than the fur, but the edge of the eye is dark. And then the eyeball itself, it fades from dark down to light. So that's what we're going to try to recreate, fade from dark down to light in a circular pattern. So let's just see, we're going to not be too dark, because it's hard to make it lighter again. It's easier to make it darker if we need to. So we're just fade, fade, fade down to about the same shade as the area around it, okay? And I'll just, once I do both of them, get them both about the same, and then I'll kind of step back and take a look, see if I'm satisfied with it. Doesn't that make a huge difference, just putting the shading in the eye? I'm gonna make this one a little bit darker to match this one. And if it's not, if the fade isn't perfect, that's okay, because the color of the eye, I forget what that's called, the color part of the eye, it usually has like a little marbled pattern to it, or marble details to it, so it doesn't have to be an exact perfect fade. Again, I'm using the texture of the paper to create you know, the texture in the eye itself. Okay, so now I'm going to work on even finer detail around the eye. See how the thickness of this dark line around the bottom of the eye, it's thicker here and here than it is down here. That dark line is thicker here, here, and then it's thinner down here. So that's what I'm going to recreate. So it's thick there, and I'm just going to leave it the same thickness as it was down there, and then I'm going to come around, make this a little bit thicker here. Same way with this eye. Just get thin on the bottom and then thicker up towards the top. Okay, that gives it a little more life-likeness. Corner cat. Yeah, Jan, that's good. He's a corner cat. Alright, so if you notice, I'll turn it this way so you can kind of get a better idea. Notice the bottom of the chin on these cats. Mine, what I drew is too close to the mouth. I need more space down here, I think, to be in proportion to this. So what I'm going to do is erase this out, and I'm going to make his chin come down a little bit farther, maybe down about, I don't even know if I'm still, yeah, there. I'm going to bring it down to about there, so that I got about the same distance between there and there, so it looks more in proportion. It's okay to erase. It's okay. So we're going to get rid of this. And his chin is really light colored anyway, so really doesn't even need much detail in there. So I'm going to again follow the contour, the shape of the chin, and just kind of suggest that that's where the chin would go. And just kind of blend these scribble lines in together. There we go. I'm a little more happy with that. Got eraser things everywhere. Alright, so what are we missing here? Let me check. Need a little more definition here as far as darkness goes. Same with this. You know how animals sometimes get that dark line under the eye where their tear ducts are, or their tears would flow down there? That's always kind of dark. Like that. Let's see here. I can't look at both at the same time in the camera. I know we're going to work on the whiskers here. I know everyone, you're anxious for that. I'm going to erase some of that. The mouth line there is a little too much, a little too dark. So I'm going to tone that down a little bit. I'm just going to make a real thin, bring it out to a real fine point there. That way it's not too defined. Kind of happy with this. What do you guys think? How far into this are we? Ooh, we're an hour into this already. Gee whiz, Steve. So I want to put a little more detail there to define where the ear kind of curves or curls over on itself. I'm going to leave this all light color down here. That's kind of good. I like that. I want to put some real sharp dark lines just to give this a little more definition where the now I'm holding my pencil more straight down so I get real sharp lines this way, because I really want to define his jaw line, his chin line there. Notice up here I have big long strokes. Over here there's little short strokes. And I can either put some long strokes over here, because there are some whiskers that kind of come up above his eyes, like, you know, big long eyebrow whiskers. You notice those on a cat. Or I could fill this in sort of like it is over here, which I'd rather do it this way. So both sides are symmetrical and look the same. Again, following the contour of the fur, so it doesn't look out of place. In between here needs to be more consistent color, shade. Now the more you work on it, the more detail, the more fine-tuning you can do. You can quit anytime. You can come back to it later. You can just add little pieces just to give it a little more definition. Want to look like the head is in front of the ears, so I need to put a little more dark back here to define that the ears are farther away than what the top of the forehead is, because it's going to wrap around the top of his head. So I want to make sure there's a line of some sort there. Okay, so how's that looking? Some fingerprints everywhere. Now I'm going to put some whiskers in. So, if you look at this, his whiskers are white, correct? And notice how they go. They don't come straight out. Like most people when they draw cat's whiskers, you know, they'll draw just straight lines coming straight out both sides beside the nose. Notice how they come out of these dark spots on each side of his nose, but they curve almost straight down. I don't know if you can see that on the camera. Oh yeah. All right, so I need to recreate that. Now since I don't have a white pencil, we're going to go ahead and do those in black anyway, even though they're not black on the actual cat. But we're going to work with what we got. I actually do have a white pencil here. Let's try it, just see what would happen if I do a white coming this way. Ooh, that's kind of interesting. So what it's doing is, it's actually, the white is picking up the graphite that's on the paper and kind of dragging it. So you're only going to see parts of the whiskers. So I might actually like that. On this side, there's not as much graphite. I'm dragging it through. There are some that kind of go off to the side. The space between the whiskers is real close together here, and then they get real far apart here. So you got to kind of make it a like it's water spraying out the end of a hose. That's how I imagine it. Okay, well that's a good start. Now we'll just put just a couple in here. Whoa, that was really long. Just to emphasize that a little more. Ooh, that one got really straight. See how that is? I don't like that. Sometimes a whisker might go straight like that if it's all wacky. We can go in there, clean that out. I want to make sure I get a curve to it. And that's the tricky part, going right side or left side. Like I got to do this kind of upside down to get that curve there. Or I can turn the paper upside down and get a nice curve to match that curve. So, and with that whisker, to me, that makes it look like he has real wide shoulders. Looks like he comes down, has no neck, and then wide shoulders. So, I don't like that. So, the way to fix that is do like it is here. I'll create a body shape and a body shape here. I'm not going to worry about this back here, but his body shape here, there, and there. And just kind of finish this down. Make that the focus rather than those whiskers sticking way out there. This kind of bounces in. And he's got like a shoulder there. There. Well, I'm going to call that done, guys. What do you think? The iris is the colored portion. I think you're right, Peggy. You got the pupil in the middle, and then the iris is the colored part. You are correct. All right. I'm gonna keep playing around with this. I'm gonna bring the dark down to kind of give the illusion that the front of that eyeball is curved like a sphere, like a ball. So it kind of fades off dark down the sides too. That gives it a little more shape, realism. All right, I think we're going to end it there for tonight. It's an hour. That's plenty of drawing time. Hopefully you guys got something out of this. Hopefully you will play around with your pencils and papers and maybe create some artwork of your own. This gives you some encouragement to try. See, this is what happens. I just want to keep messing with it, and sometimes I just need to quit while I'm ahead. So hopefully this will encourage you to try drawing if you haven't yet, and see what you can do. Don't be afraid to erase. A good artist always knows how to fix their mistakes or use their mistakes for their benefit. You don't have to have any kind of fancy pencils. You can just use a regular 2B pencil. This is just a piece of copier paper, basically, like cardstock. It's a little heavier, but experiment with different tools, different papers, different things. See what you can do. Thanks for watching, guys. Appreciate y'all. I'm gonna have to turn my phone up here so I can hit the done button. See, most people don't see me with my glasses on. There I am. Oh, Peggy's giving me applause. Thank you, Peggy. Thank you, ladies, for tuning in, and gentlemen, whoever's out there tonight. We are going to take off next week. I don't have a corner concert scheduled, or a corner stage showcase scheduled for next week, unless I can coordinate with a group that I talked to this week. I might be able to get them in next Friday, but for right now, I don't have anything scheduled for next Friday, so that Friday will be off. And then the week after, we have a group called Nis and Nat. It's a husband and wife duo. They play all kinds of cover tunes. I don't know if they have originals or not. Maybe, probably. If they do, that's cool too. But they're brand new performance duo in the area, and they're trying to step out and do their thing, so we're giving them a little platform here on the Corner Stage Showcase. And money is still rolling in, and donations still keep coming in for the Corner Stage Arts and Education Center, whether it's online or cash. People have been bringing money in, and I have an envelope behind my desk that about once a week I go to the bank and put it in the savings account. I have about $1,500 saved up of just all donations. I haven't put, well, I put a little bit of my own stuff in at the beginning, but that's all donations that has come in since I started this, and that should be enough to get my 501c3 started, the paperwork, the accountant fees, and the registration fees, and all that kind of stuff. So we're well on our way to reaching our goal. So thank you all once again. Appreciate each and every one of you. And we'll see you all again soon. Thanks, guys.